Welcome to this session on entrepreneurship development. In this session, we are going to discuss about something called project formulation. And subsequently, we'll take up for a discussion what is project appraisal. Now, before we delve deep into the subject, let me ask you, what is your understanding of a project? What is a project from the point of view of an entrepreneur? What do you think it is? What do you think the subject would contain?
Sir, in my opinion, a project formulation primarily deals with a new business venture which an entrepreneur tries to get in.
Correct. So by project we mean the entrepreneur is trying to develop something new which has not existed so far. So he's trying to build up a project from scratch where he has to start from the point of land acquisition, in fact, developing technology for the product that he's going to manufacture, or even set up a building and put up a plant, bring in machinery, technology and all that. And so that's a huge project we are referring to, the series of interconnected activities that we are looking at, and therefore it needs some kind of a detailed planning. Okay, so this is what we discuss in project formulation.
So first, at least in any case of any project, first and foremost we must have an idea of
Correct.
what to means perform, and then we must
Yes.
develop on that idea. So
It is exactly so. That's the reason we say that project formulation is nothing but a systematic development of a project idea. Okay, for the eventual objective of arriving at an investment decision. See, any new project will require a major investment to be made. Okay, and it starts with an idea, as you said. So we start off with an idea, but before we invest into the idea, we have to understand whether the idea is feasible, whether the product is going to be acceptable to the market, or the service is going to be accepted by the users, and then take a major decision whether to go ahead and make that investment. There's no point thinking about that later on after having made the investment. So in the project formulation stage, what we do is we try to systematically develop that idea from scratch, and we come to a situation where we are able to take a decision whether to go ahead with the investment or to drop that whole idea completely. Okay, so it is really a step-by-step investigation and a development of a project idea from scratch. So what does it really provide? I mean, why do we need to do this? The basic question comes is, why do we need to carry out this kind of an investigation? What is the answer to that? Can anyone make an attempt?
Sir, because while carrying out a project, we need to make huge investments.
Yes.
So for that, a detailed planning regarding the expenditure.
Correct.
Like what will be the amount of money to be spent in different activities.
Yes.
That has to be carved out from the plan.
Okay. See,
Is it in any case somewhat like the SWOT analysis which is undertaken?
It involves SWOT analysis as a part of it, but then the whole idea is to reduce the risk involved. Okay, see, before you jump into it, you need to assess what are the risks involved and what is the kind of payoff you would expect, right? The risk return kind of an analysis that you need to do ultimately before you take that final decision of investment. So we are saying that it provides a control mechanism for restricting the expenditure on project development further. I mean, you need to know where to invest, where not to invest, because resources after all are scarce, and you cannot be spending without a detailed analysis of the avenues into which you would spend.
we can say that it means it contains financial planning.
It obviously contains financial planning. So the idea is, if you detect weaknesses at any stage of the development of the project, then you as an entrepreneur can drop the idea and save the amount of resources which would have otherwise gone waste. Okay.
So can we conclude that if a project is well formulated, it has greater probability of getting help from financial institutions?
Absolutely. One of the major reasons why project formulation is carried out is because most of the entrepreneurs would require some kind of financial assistance, and that is going to come from the financial institutes. Okay. And these financial institutions will extend financial assistance to you only when they are convinced that you have got a project idea which is feasible, which is viable, and which in many ways is going to benefit society at large, right? So there is a lot of analysis, there are a lot of angles from which you'll have to evaluate a project. You have to carry out the formulation of the project. And it's not only that, Kashif, in fact, it goes beyond that. Like, for example, apart from the financial institutions, there are many government agencies who are involved in the job of giving you appraisal for the project and giving you sanction and clearance for that project. So if these people do not clear your project, you will perhaps not be able to set up a project.
So you mean to say like various licenses? Like
there are different licenses, there are different clearances which you have to obtain from the government bodies, and those will not come through without a detailed project report, and unless the government agencies are convinced that you have got a very good project idea and it can really be translated into actual project implementation. So that is what project formulation is. So if that is what project formulation is, then what would you expect the different elements of project formulation to be? Or let's say, what are the different steps through which such a project formulation would proceed? The first thing that you would do is perhaps called a feasibility analysis. Okay, a feasibility analysis. We'll get into detail about each of these points, but first of all, let's have the points together. The first step is a feasibility analysis. A feasibility analysis will be followed by what is called a techno-economic analysis, right? The third stage would see project design and a network analysis. The fourth step would see an analysis of the inputs, right? There are several inputs to a project and one has to carry out an input analysis also. The next stage would see a financial analysis. Having done the financial analysis, you would look into what is the social cost and benefit analysis, okay? Because a project is a part of society and it has to ultimately benefit society. Therefore, there is the question of social cost benefit analysis, because not all projects are purely commercial. There are many social angles to the project. For example, public sector projects have got lots of socialistic implications, and those social cost benefit factors will also be evaluated by the government, for example, for giving a clearance to a project. And finally, we'll look into what is project appraisal. The last step would be project appraisal. Hopefully, it will go through all these steps successfully, and the project will be successfully and positively appraised by the governmental agencies and the financial institutions. Only then the project will see the light of day. Okay. So let's go back to the first step. As we said, it is the feasibility analysis. What do you think is the feasibility analysis? What do you mean by feasibility?
Like the project which we are going to undertake, how feasible would it would be?
Yes, what do you mean by feasible? That's what I'm asking.
So is it viable or not? I mean, both financially, I mean the different factors which are necessary for a project to be successful. For example, from the financial point of view, from the social point of view.
Correct.
And as well as from
Even
a
from the
technological
environmental point of view, yes, of course.
from a technological point of view, whether
Right.
Like the points which are being put up, are they applicable in real sense?
Correct.
Or not?
I mean, a project has to operate under a situation, where there are several constraints imposed on the project by the environment itself. Okay, there are socio-economic factors involved, there are technological factors involved, several factors are involved, and all these act as some kind of a constraint or the other on the project. You do not have, let's say, infinite amount of resources. Nobody has it. Okay, one has to operate within the framework of constraints. The environment is never fully permissive or fully, in favor of your developing a project. There will be some kind of hurdles and obstacles coming up from different quarters. Okay, so it is always important to find out whether the idea, it is at the very nascent stage, whether this idea is really viable. Can we really translate?
Validity of the idea.
That's right.
How valid it is.
Can this idea be really translated to something in practice, something that will be practical and on the ground? Okay, so it is really the process of evaluating the future of the project idea. The project idea as of now is new. Okay, it has to have a future. Is that future sustainable? That's the important thing we are trying to find out. So we are trying to find out if the future of the project is within the limitations of the project implementing authority. Now, let's say when you take up a project for implementation, or let's say if you take up a project for formulation, what are the three possible outcomes? First outcome would be the project might appear to be very positive, okay, very favorable. The idea might appear to be very favorable, and in such case, the entrepreneur would proceed to invest further into developing it, okay, at the later stages, right? The second outcome could be the project idea might not appear to be very feasible, okay, and the entrepreneur will have to take a decision at this point of time not to invest further and trying to explore the idea anymore, okay. So that he has to rule out a few things at this stage. So that's an important decision he has to make. The go, no go decision that he has to make is really important at this stage, okay. And the third thing, there could be a third outcome. What is the third outcome possible? What could be a third outcome? The data that is available, I mean, all projects depend on a lot of data, a framework of data from different walks of life, okay. And the data that's available to the entrepreneur is not sufficient, not adequate for one to take a decision. That's also a possibility. And at that stage, the entrepreneur would decide that additional data will have to be collected and compiled so that the investment decision can be taken on a firm ground. So really speaking, how you do this is you first of all carry out what is called a pre-feasibility analysis. Even before you carry out an actual feasibility analysis, there's something that precedes it. It's called a pre-feasibility study, which tries to seek, tries to look into information areas such as market and plant capacity. Like, for example, you're thinking of manufacturing some kind of a product, okay, a tangible product. So one of the first questions you would like to ask is, what is the kind of demand for such a product in the market, right? How big is the market for this kind of a product? What is the competition in the market for this kind of a product? And if you find that there's a gap in demand, I mean, there is a demand and there is little supply available, and you can walk into that slot, then you have to think of how big a plant you need to set up. What is the plant capacity? What should be your production capacity in order to fulfill that kind of an unmet demand in the market? So these issues will have to be gone into in the pre-feasibility study.
So, but
Yeah.
On an entrepreneur level, so is
Yeah.
it feasible for that individual, or for in case a group of individuals, to undertake such a vast marketing research?
Well, many a times, many entrepreneurs do not embark on a marketing research study as such. They collect some kind of data by desk research. There's a lot of secondary data available in the market also. There is industry data available. So if you're trying to, let's say, enter into an industry that already exists and there are players in that kind of an industry already, by looking at what kind of production capacities they have, what is the kind of markets they enjoy, you get some kind of an idea as to whether the market is big enough to hold another entrant like yourself. Okay, it may not be a very detailed market research report that we are looking at this stage. What we are trying to understand is, does it warrant a market research to go into more detail and find out how much exactly is the unmet demand? Is there a latent demand? I mean, there's some kind of product available. There are some brands available, let's say, and people are not done with that. They want more of that, or they want some variety of that. Is there some kind of a demand? Can we go into markets which have not been tapped by the existing competitors? That kind of information is what we are looking at. And then if you find that there's enough reason for a further investigation and a detailed market research, we might do so at the feasibility stage. But then before going into the feasibility stage, you need to assure yourself that it can be answered with the help of a detailed marketing research, and chances are high that you might find a favorable outcome if you carry out one kind of a market research survey. Okay, so that's what you would do. At this stage, I would say you do not go into much detail what you are referring to, which is going to be done at the feasibility analysis later on, which is going to follow this particular step. Okay. But to start with, the desk research needs to be favorable. Whatever little amount of information that you have at this stage, that needs to be a pointer to the favorable direction. Only then you'll take it further from there and enter into a detailed feasibility study. Okay. Another thing is, like, you would look into what is the material input in order to manufacture a product XYZ, whatever you're trying to manufacture. What is the material input that is required?
Requirements, the resources.
What are the resources required? Raw materials or other semi-finished products, inputs, in fact, non-material inputs also. Where do we get them from? Is there an adequate supply for such kind of inputs? What prices are ruling in the market? And can there be an uninterrupted supply of such resources and raw materials? Okay, in order to justify that kind of production capacity, one has to link the production capacity with the material input supply. Okay, you would also need to worry about, if at all you go ahead with this venture, where would you locate this plant? That's an important decision. Yeah. What is going to be the plant location? Facilities, where you locate them. That's an important decision you have to take. Okay. You will then also look into some overview of project engineering. What kind of technology it would take to make such a product, and where from would you source technology? Okay, what are the likely overheads that you would incur trying to manufacture a product like this, in terms of direct workers or managerial overheads and so on and so forth? What kind of manpower you would require? Do we have such kind of manpower within the company itself, if it's an existing company, or do we have to hire manpower, train manpower to come up to the desired skills level?
Human resource requirements.
Human resource requirement. That's something you have to have. You have to really frame some kind of a basic framework, which is going to, on which you're going to add more meat as you go along. Okay. And finally, you have to think about what is going to be the nature of project implementation. How long will it take you? What are the issues involved, and what kind of very basic preliminary financial analysis that needs to be done. That is what the pre-feasibility study would encompass, and after having done that, you would move into a detailed feasibility study. Okay, so that's what we do. We go into more detail. We try to, let's say, analyze different location possibilities for the facility, and then try to arrive at one particular location, trying to take a decision in favor of the best possible location, how that location is going to help in terms of availability of inputs by way of raw materials and other inputs. Yeah.
So is this the final analysis as far as feasibility is concerned? Like, if
well, it's still not final, I would say. I would say that it is, because you have whatever you have seen at the pre-feasibility, you are encouraged by that. Okay, so you are trying to go into
It's a
more
follow-up
detail.
of-
It's
it's
a
a follow-up
follow-up.
of the
You are
pre-feasibility
going to put more, more material on that framework, so that you gradually inch towards a detailed project report. In fact, what you find at the feasibility study stage is going to become an input to your feasibility report or the detailed project report, which would come much later, because there are certain other steps intervening in between. Okay, but then, as you said, I mean, it is going to give you the inputs which are going to find their way into the detailed feasibility report that is going to be submitted to the bodies required for appraisal of the project. Okay. Now, one thing one would say is that basically the feasibility study tries to answer detailed questions. You'd ask very detailed questions at this stage, and you're trying to go into a lot of detail trying to answer those questions, and you're trying to attack the thing from I would say 6 different angles. You would look at the project from the economic angle primarily. It has to be economically feasible, number one. Okay, it will have to be technically feasible. You'll have to, see what is the managerial possibility. I mean, do you have the right kind of management in place in order to convert this dream into a reality? The managerial possibilities. Do we have the organizational setup, or what kind of an organization do we have to build up in order to support this project idea? The organizational feasibility. The commercial and financial feasibility, of course. Okay, like what is the difference between the economic feasibility and the commercial feasibility? The economic feasibility is in terms of the economics of the environment. Does the environment permit you to carry out this kind of a project? Is there a demand for that kind of a product in the marketplace? Would you be happy with the kind of return that you'll earn? Is what you'll look into the commercial and the financial analysis. Are you going to be satisfied with that kind of a return, or would you rather invest in some other project? Because you are going to look at alternatives. You're not stuck to one project idea. Maybe you have got more than one project idea, and you're trying to compare between the possibilities of the 2 project ideas or 3 project ideas, right? So you are going to compare, and for that reason you need to find out what is the feasibility of each of these project ideas. So you are still toying with different project ideas. It's not just one. Okay, it may not be just one. And one important thing which needs to be mentioned is you have to also look at the feasibility aspect from the social standpoint. Because every organization ultimately is a social entity, okay, and therefore it has social obligations.
These are the duties it should provide,
Right.
it should perform for the society.
Absolutely, it has to give back something to society, and it has to ultimately benefit society at large. And is that project a step towards doing so? If you have that kind of a backup, then it's easier for you to get an appraisal or get a favorable appraisal from the government authorities. If not, if you're doing something which is going against the interest of society, chances are very high that you'll not get a clearance for that kind of project. Okay.
something like if we are setting up a manufacturing unit, you
Yeah.
also build ancillaries providing more jobs.
Absolutely, more employment.
Okay,
That means
for
you're
the
going to
local
generate
people.
more employment, and that is certainly going to be looked upon favorably by the people who are going to grant you clearance for that project. Okay. So this is what the feasibility study is about. It's a very detailed analysis, and it might take a very long time. But as we said before, and we repeat here, that you would rather spend time here than regret a decision taken later on. Okay, so spend time, do a thorough analysis of the project idea from several angles, and then if you still feel that there is something that's there in it for you, then you launch into what is called a techno-economic analysis. Now, what would the techno-economic analysis involve? This is concerned with the identification of basically 2 things. One is the project demand. Okay, now every project has got 2 things there: a demand and the capacity to fulfill that demand. Okay, that's going to complement each other. So, what is the project demand? If you are able to understand that, which means you'll have to look at the demand potential with a lot of detail, and then you'll have to think of what is the right and the optimal technology that needs to be adopted in trying to satisfy that kind of a demand potential.
So at this point, like what I would add,
Yeah.
like in this techno-economic analysis,
Yes.
one thing we should see, like whether the project demands, whether the project is labor intensive or capital intensive.
Okay, yes, of course.
Okay, so from this point of view, or based on this, the optimum, like we will decide whether to spend more on technology or whether to recruit more manpower to
Correct.
carry out the project.
Correct. See, as we say that one thing is demand, the market, which is not under your control, okay, and the potential is where what you're looking at. There's a potential demand in the market, and that's the reason you are trying to explore that project idea, basically, okay. And the other thing is, what is the right technology? As you said, will it be a labor-intensive unit or will it be a capital-intensive unit? Depends on what is the project idea, what is the product, what is the involvement of technology in a product like that, and where from would you source technology if that's required. So the entire blueprint of your subsequent project design is going to be based on this. Okay, if it's going to be more of a labor-intensive project, a lot of emphasis will be placed on the manpower planning at this stage itself. Okay, or if you think that the project is a very capital-intensive kind of a project, then your sourcing of technology will have to surface at this point itself. Where from are we going to source technology? What kind of technology? Do we have the right manpower to assess and buy technology? Okay, and what is the prospect of developing that technology in-house? All these issues will be gone into at this stage.
So
okay.
in this stage, you strike a balance between manpower versus the technology.
Yes, and you're missing out the other thing, the demand. I mean, depending on the demand, see if the demand is very big, you have to set up a big plant, okay? And the big plant might need a lot of mechanization, a lot of automation, things like that. Or it might so happen that the product is such that it is really in the labor-intensive sector. If you look at most of the competitors, they are engaging more of manpower than technology. Very broadly speaking. Now, in that case, you may not want to break with that tradition, or you perhaps feel that there's the economics working for you if you are going in for a labor-intensive kind of an operation, or maybe technology is something that you will not be able to source for this kind of a product, or the kind of money you have to pay for it, or the kind of manpower you require to harness the technology in the company, it's not available to you at this point of time.
So we can say that the demand is the determining factor which determines
it in fact is the determining factor
of the labor or the requirement of technology.
Correct. It is the most important thing is the demand, and if the demand is big, then you think of the rest. If the demand is not so big, the potential is not so big, here itself you can take a decision not to pursue that project idea any further. Okay, but if you find the demand is substantial, then you worry about what kind of technology is suitable, what kind of strategy is suitable to attack that kind of a demand.
So one more thing, we can say that the estimation of the demand is absolutely necessary for
very important. The forecasting therefore becomes in fact that's the next point we are going to talk about, involves a detailed forecasting of demand at this stage. What is going to be the demand for that product in the marketplace? And I would say it's not only the demand for the end product in the marketplace, also what is going to be the demand placed on the raw material inputs. I mean, you have to source raw material from the raw material market, and what is the kind of demand that's going to be placed on the raw material inputs. That is also you have to forecast, something you have to forecast. Okay. So for selection of the optimal strategy, you'll also have to have some kind of a measure of performance. Otherwise you cannot choose something over some other thing. Okay, so you have to develop some kind of a criterion of choice. Otherwise you cannot select between one option and the other. This is what you really do in the feasibility study and the techno-economic analysis. Now, suppose a project idea has successfully gone through the feasibility analysis and the techno-economic analysis. What would follow then would be the project design and network analysis. Now, what is project design and what is network analysis? Project design would basically involve identification of what are the various activities involved in that project. Okay, if you really want to set up a plant or a facility, what are the different activities that need to be carried out and in what sequence? Which activity will depend on which other activity and in what way? So detailed identification of activities and resources will have to be carried out, and you have to have some kind of a network planning here. Like I think you are familiar with, you may have heard of the critical path method and the program evaluation and review technique. CPM and PERT are two very important and popular methods of network analysis.
So in other words, how to go about with the project, sir?
That is right. That is the when would you do what in trying to convert the project into a reality. Okay. Like there would be a series of activities to be carried out at different points in time, and many of them will depend on other activities to be done before that or after that, things like that, or activities might be carried on parallelly.
So this is the stage wherein you channelize different
Absolutely. You have some kind of a blueprint where you can really draw something on the board and say this activity will have to be taken up at this point of time. It should be finished at this point of time, which will be followed by some other activity after that point of time. So what is the interrelationship between activities and what is the time and what are the resources that are going to be consumed by each of those activities? You have to have a very fair idea of those activities at this stage of the project development. Okay. And having done that, you have to create some sort of network running through the entire project, right from concept to commissioning.
And from the starting point to the
from the
end
starting point to the end point, you have to have a clear idea as to what are the activities and how they will proceed through the entire network. In fact, we discuss in a lot of detail about PERT and CPM as methods of network analysis in a different episode, where you'll see how activities are planned, scheduled, and how they are placed in perspective with the other activities required to complete the project. You also have to identify something called a critical route of activities through the network, and you might have to worry about monitoring those critical activities more than the others, because you cannot afford to delay on those activities. The entire project would get delayed in that case. So all these things are going to be involved in the project design and network analysis. Now, having done a project design and network analysis, which itself is a big exercise. Now, we might have said that in a very few words, but then, as I said, we will come back and discuss about network analysis in a lot of detail, because that's very technical and it needs a separate discussion altogether. But then, at this point of time, what we would say is that after having carried out that project design and the network analysis, we would launch into something called an input analysis. But then I think we have run out of time. We will not be able to add more to this episode. We do this in another episode. Okay, we talk about the input analysis and the feasibility and the detailed project report and stuff like that in a different episode. Okay, have you understood what we have discussed till this point of time? Okay, thank you.